Now we're ready to add links. So let's go to navbar.html. So currently we have two links on the navigation bar, followers and posts. And each of these links, as you can see, has an href attribute. In Angular applications, we don't use this attribute. Let me show you why. So I'm going to change the value of this href attribute to /followers. And similarly for the second link, I'm going to change this to /posts. Let's see what happens when we use the href attribute. So back in the browser. So currently we are on the home page, but you can see the followers link in the navigation bar is highlighted. I know this is a little bit confusing. Don't worry about that, as we're going to fix this in the next lecture. But note that when I click on the links in the navigation bar, the page is going to flicker. So I click on followers. Did you see the page flickered? It went blank for a split second. You're going to see this again. So I'm going to click on posts. Look. Now this was too fast. You probably didn't see it. Let me click on followers one more time. With this kind of navigation, every time we click on a link, the entire page is downloaded and the Angular app is reinitialized. That's why the page goes blank for just a split second. Now, as your application grows, as you have more code, the cost of startup is going to be higher. So that delay will be even more. Now, if you look at the browser network tab, so every time we click on any of these links here, all the resources in our application are re-downloaded. So as an example, you can see all our JavaScript bundles are re-downloaded every time we click on a link. This is something we want to avoid at all costs. Otherwise, there is no point using Angular to build modern applications. When we click on a link, we want only the content for the new page to be downloaded, not the entire application, not all the resources. So to fix this problem, instead of the href attribute, we're going to use a directive called RouterLink. So I'm going to replace this with RouterLink. And similarly here, RouterLink. This directive is also defined in the router module. Now let's go back to the browser. Here, first I'm going to refresh the page. Now open up the network tab. These are all the resources that are downloaded the first time we open the application. Now I'm going to clear all the items in this list. Okay. Now let's see what happens when we click on any of the links in the navigation bar. So I'm going to click followers. First of all, we didn't have a flickering effect. The navigation bar stayed there. The page didn't go blank. Only the content area was reloaded. Now let's go back to the network tab one more time. Here you can only see the request for the content of the followers page. So these are the images of my followers. In this list, you're not going to see any JavaScript bundles re-downloaded. And you can verify this by filtering for JavaScript files. Look, there is no JavaScript files. There is no CSS files. All of these resources were downloaded only the first time. So we refer to applications built this way as single page applications. So essentially, a single page is downloaded from the server, and as the user navigates from one page to another, only the content of the target page is downloaded. So single page applications or SPAs. Now, before we finish this lecture, let's go to our followers page and add a link for each follower. So followers.html. So here we have a link for each follower. I'm going to replace this href with RouterLink. However, this time we're dealing with a dynamic URL. So we don't want to send the user to a page like followers/1. This parameter should be rendered dynamically. When we are dealing with route parameters, instead of using the RouterLink as an attribute, we should use the property binding syntax. So property binding. And here, instead of binding this to a string, we should bind it to an expression. In this expression, we have an array. The first element in this array is the path. So that is /followers. After this first element, we add all the route parameters. So currently we have only one route parameter. So we can add that here. Follower .login if you want to render the username, or follower.id. It doesn't make a difference here. So save, back in the browser. Now here, if I click the first follower, we get to the profile page and note the URL in the browser's location bar. So to recap, for simple routes, you can use the RouterLink directive as an attribute and set it to a string value. If you're dealing with route parameters, you should use the property binding syntax and set the value of this property to an array. The first element in this array is the path, and the subsequent elements are route arguments.